Hello guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Dog Brothers Open Gathering that just happened a few weeks ago while it's still fresh in my mind. I really like going to the gathering. I look forward to it all year. I've gone to a few of them now, and I wanted to share the love a little bit. For those of you who are not familiar with the Dog Brothers, it is a real contact stick fighting group. It's heavily influenced by Filipino martial arts, but they also take from a lot of other styles as well, and it's a very mixed martial arts approach. Their philosophy is higher consciousness through harder contact. Every year in the US, they have one public and one private gathering. They also have a very large group in Europe that has the same, and I believe there's also one in Eastern Canada at least. There might be others around the world. I will drop a link down in the description to the Dog Brothers website so you can check them out if you're interested, since this video is mostly going to be about the gathering itself and not the organization. I didn't fight this year, and I'll explain why at the end of the video, but my husband did. So if it sounds like I'm talking out of my ass about something I have no first-hand experience with, well, my husband did, and he contributed quite heavily to this video. My instructor is also a full dog brother, and he has lent his perspective to me and his other students many times, so I'm going to be drawing from that as well. Fights don't have points, they don't keep score, there's no declared winners. Fighters go until someone is knocked out, or they tap out, or they're too injured to continue, or until time runs out, and time can be extended if there's interesting things happening on the floor. There's no weight classes, the only gender divide is for weapons that rely on power like sticks. Nowadays, most of the fighters do have a background in Kali or Eskrima, but in all sorts of different sub-styles, and some only in Dog Brothers, and some in Inosanto Lacosto, or Pakiti Tercia, or Balintawak, or many other styles. And some are just martial artists in general who don't have a background in FMA, who really want to test themselves, and they're willing to pick up a stick to do that. So in this way, the gatherings are a really good opportunity to see how different styles and subsystems integrate and match up or don't. Participants fight with very minimal padding or protection, typically just a face mask, a cup, and then lightly padded gloves. Some people do use elbow and knee protection, but it's just foam padding, no hard shells. The reason that they fight is to experiment and to test techniques. My instructor calls it a weapons laboratory, which I think is a good analogy. And they also fight, of course, to test their own skill. Part of this is to see if the techniques work in real time. But another big component of it is to train martial arts in that adrenalized state. So that way, if you ever do encounter a dangerous situation out in the world, in that panic of the moment, you don't have all your skills go out the window because you've never trained in that mode. The only real rule for fighting at the Dog Brothers is be friends at the end of the day. This is really important for me to emphasize because I think it best reflects the atmosphere and attitude that's found at the gatherings. There are a lot of videos and documentaries out there of the Dog Brothers that show them as a all-out, extreme testosterone rite of passage, and it's a little bit of that too. But I really haven't seen anything in public that talks about the friendship component of it, and that's really what has impressed me time and time again at open gatherings, at seminars, and at talking with members of the tribe. So that's what I want to talk about. The value of the rule, be friends at the end of the day, is actually that it's kind of vague, and so therefore it's flexible. To some fighters, being your friend means going as hard as they can against you in order to test you and to make you learn from the fight. It can mean hitting you hard enough to potentially break bones if it teaches you to modify that technique going forward to keep yourself safer. It can also mean decelerating a dangerous blow to the head so they don't leave you with permanent damage, controlling their power, or pulling certain shots that would otherwise leave their opponent severely injured. These people look out for each other. They'll help each other up when one falls, even if the reason the guy fell is because the other guy just took out his knee. They're not afraid to make each other bleed, but they'll also pause the fight and make sure you're okay to continue before they go on. When the fight is over, they hug and congratulate each other. They'll compliment each other on the things that they did right, give props where deserved, but they'll also make helpful suggestions and observations on the things that didn't work out so well. It's hard to imagine an environment like this being ego-free, and maybe it's not entirely, but it is in the places where it really counts. This is not a group full of fighters who are there to break other people so they can puff up their own egos and show off. I don't think that attitude would be tolerated by anybody, and honestly, with so many great fighters, many of them professional MMA, that sort of ego would be put down very quickly on the floor. These are people who are there to support their friends and their brothers on their journey. And those are the people that stick around, and those are largely the people who have make up the tribe now. You can see it in the way they interact, in the way that they talk, and you can also see it in the fights when a good shot will evoke a nod from the other person who got hit, as if to say, "Good job, you got me." I've done some seminars with some amazing fighters, and they're all very humble, and they're very comfortable talking about the mistakes they've made so you can avoid them. Mistakes are a learning experience is sort of an overdone cliche, but it's really lived honestly here. At one seminar, a very great fighter was telling us a story about the time he went in for a toe smash, and he was so pleased with the hit that he paused to admire his handiwork, as he said, and he took a very punishing blow to the head that was way worse than the toe smash could have been. The moral of the story is, if anything, ego just gets in the way. Also, to make sure to get in and out quickly. The guys are friendly, and they're so nice. They're excited about fighting, they love fighting, and they want you to love it too. The Dog Brothers are inclusive in the sense that they do have a private organization and they do have a private gathering for those who have worked themselves up in the ranks, but it never feels exclusionary when you talk to them. If that is the kind of thing that you're interested in, then hell yeah, they want you to jump in and they want to help you do it. This year's open gathering was just an exemplary reflection of that. It was a great time to see lots of good fighters test themselves and their friends. There was over 50 fighters and I believe close to 100 fights that day. And this year there was even a lady. Some people just fought once or twice, but there were tons of people that kept going out again and again and again, and sometimes only with one usable hand or a noticeable limp, but they went back out again. We saw some interesting fights this year with some cool weapons configurations. Although most people are there to stick fight, you will see other stuff, and some of it is pretty interesting. Most fights start with a single or double knife fight to warm up, and then they move on to the real fights, which are the stick fights. People will fight single stick or double stick, or single stick fighter versus double stick fighter. We also saw a number of sword fights, some sword and buckler fights, some staff fights, and one match where guys came at each other with chains. The fights are being uploaded right now, but they are behind a paywall for the Dog Brothers Martial Arts Associate members. This is because the head of the Dog Brothers, Mark Denny, aka Crafty Dog, this is his livelihood. Usually some of the highlights and clips do make their way to YouTube, but even if they don't, you can find plenty of older videos and highlight reels from past both open and private gatherings. If you check out past highlight reels on YouTube, you can find some interesting stuff from prior gatherings, including my personal favorite from a few tribals ago where two guys came at each other with cooking woks. So I said earlier that I didn't fight this year, and I want to talk about why. I did debate it very heavily. But there are a few reasons ultimately I chose not to fight. The primary reason is that because one of the very few rules in Dog Brothers is that women can only stick fight other women. There are not a ton of women fighters, and you don't know in advance if they're going. This year there was one, last year there was none. I think the open gathering before that there was 2 or 3. I didn't want to spend months and months training to show up and then have the disappointment of there being no one for me to fight. Women can knife fight the men, but the knife fights are kind of viewed as warm-up fights, so it didn't really seem like a satisfying alternative. I showed up and there were no ladies to play Eskrima with. However, what I didn't know is that women can sword fight the men, and you can also do these sort of knife fights mixed in with the stick fights throughout the day, so you're not just locked into that one knife fight at the beginning. However, I didn't know this until I heard it from my instructor a little too late right before the gathering. It's not actually on the Dog Brothers website. That does change things a bit, knowing that you can sword fight. I don't really focus on sword very much, but I like it a lot, and it might be something I considered if I was going to fight. And maybe these are all just stupid excuses so I can get out of fighting, but I have been known to do some crazy shit before because I decided I was going to do it. So maybe I'll make up my mind and decide to do it this year. I can say that if I do decide to fight, this channel is going to be coming along with me on the journey, so there you go. Thank you for listening, guys. Be sure to check out the Dog Brothers if you think it's a thing that sounds cool to you. Search YouTube, find some clips from the open and tribal gatherings, and check those out, and thank you for watching.